Howdy, y'all. Welcome in. Cowboy here. Today we're going to be talking about what ships you should be using in Season 3. We're about halfway through the season. Halloween event just came out. I thought it'd be pretty cool to do a tier list. So that's what we're working on. If you're watching this on YouTube, I am live on Twitch doing this right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, you guys actually will have a better experience because I'll be able to edit in important information right here, such as the upgraded ship perks. So that being said, let's go ahead and hop on in, guys. If you didn't know, you can access the Knowledge Codex by hitting K on mouse and keyboard, or if you're on PC, or I'm sorry, if you're on console, just hit Map and then tab over to the Knowledge tab. The Codex has most everything you'll need, weapons, etc. It tells you how to get them, yeah, how to make them, etc. But we're going in here for the ships. Now, the reason I say everything is because it doesn't include the upgraded ships. So when you 6 of 6 your boat, it doesn't tell you what those perks you get are. So that's why I'm gonna be ending it. But anyways, jumping right in, guys. Starting out at the bottom down here. We're going to start with the Battle Drunk and work our way up to the D-How. It's rough starting with a S tier ship. I hate to do it out the gate, but Battle Drunk is S tier. Reasons why are very easy. If you look at this Provoke perk, you get a taunt, which helps in like the traditional aspect of tanking. If you're playing the Battle Drunk because you want to be a tank, right? If you look at the other tanks in this category, the Hulk just eats damage. The Snow just eats damage. The Battle Drunk eats damage, but it brings more to the table than that. These two are just all about surviving themselves. If you build them right, you might be able to kind of work a taunt into the build. But the Battle Drunk, right, it's tanky, and it comes with a free taunt built in. Now, that's not all, folks. We're going Billy Mays on this thing. The Taunted decreases your damage taken. Now, we don't have a fixed number that we know for sure. I've yet to test it. I don't think any other player has tested it. I haven't seen any Reddit posts about it or anything. But I'm going to guesstimate that it's about 15% damage mitigation that this Taunted charge applies. So, anyways, you get to reduce the target's damage when you taunt them. And you get to apply a debuff that's going to increase their damage taken by 50% when hitting weak spots. So between those two things right there, that's enough utility, in my opinion, to automatically put this thing at S tier. You're still relatively tanky, but let's go ahead and break out the 6 of 6 perk if you want more. When you brace damage, you're going to decrease the damage you take by 2% and apply Taunted to the target that's hitting you. So you don't have to hit this person anymore. If you're base Battle Drunk, you still need to hit him. But if you're upgraded, just taking damage and bracing it is gonna taunt them to you, which is really nice as far as getting that damage mitigation out to all targets. And then again, that perk, that 2%, it stacks up to 20. So you get a passive 20% damage mitigation, which is better than Snow or Hulk get. They both get high brace strength and high brace recovery ish. But the Battle Drunk just gets to take less damage, which is really cool, and you get to deal more damage. So, easy choice. If you'd like to really take that a step beyond, you can run it on like a bloodied build, a low health build. Rock the Black Prince, rock the Iron Capstone, and then make sure you keep your taunted charges on people. Between that and your ship passive, you'll get 40% from the Black Prince. You'll get 20 from your ship passive. So you're sitting at 60 right there. You throw in the Iron Capstone while anchored, you're going to generate more threat, and you're going to take 15% less damage. That's going to put you at, what, like 75? And then you factor in another 15 for if the target is taunted. That's putting you... I'm sure it caps out. Like, I'm sure there's a diminishing return. I haven't found it because I know the Sloop can stack another 10% damage mitigation on there, but you're sitting around 90% damage mitigation, 95% damage mitigation with all those things. And there's more ways that you can get that damage down as well, but I won't get into all of that. This is a tier list on ships, not how to break the game. Anyways, moving on, guys. That's an easy S tier. I think we can all agree with that one. We're going to go ahead and jump into the Brig. this is a kind of a hot take here. I hate that word. I don't know why I said that, but the Brig is classified as a support ship. So when you talk about it in terms of this bracket right here, the cutter support, the bark support, and the Brig support, it's at the bottom of it, in my opinion. These two both get 60% increased whole health on like friendly repairs. So like when you're using a repair weapon, you're gonna deal 60% more healing. This does not. If this did, this would be really good. But instead, we get like a buoy-centric theme, I guess, where they really want us to focus on our buoy damage. And the reason this is a farce for me, I hate this perk. This perk needs to be reworked. Best case scenario, let's say you 6 of 6 to your Brig. You'll get the 10% increased auxiliary damage from that. And it'll stack with this 30%, giving you a cumulative total of 40% increased effectiveness of your buoys. That doesn't compare. That's 20% less than the bark gets at base upgrades. The bark is just accidentally outpacing the Brig at buoys, and that's what the Brig specializes in. And you say, oh, okay, well, maybe don't run it as a support ship, like don't run it as a healer, maybe run it as a damage dealer. Well, it's a good thought, but the Sambuk is going to outclass it there as well. Accidentally. And not by a little amount. Now, again, let's say this is 6 of 6. This is going to be 40% effectiveness. It doesn't compare to the 50% that the Sambuk gets. Anytime a target's on fire with the Sambuk, you're going to deal 50% increased damage. Now, the Infernal Maul, which is the damage buoy, instantly applies a blaze to targets that are hit by it. So your subsequent buoys are always going to deal 50% more damage. But that's just in terms of buoys. Everything else about the Sambuk is going to hit 50% harder too, making it far superior to the Brig. The Brig is just bad at buoys. I won't say it's bad because it's better than every other boat at buoys, but like that's the thing, you know what I mean? That's its niche. It should be way better at buoys than it is. So for that, we're gonna kind of limit the Brig. We'll put it high C, low B for right now. We might bump it up to B later depending on how these categories are looking. But I can't in good conscience. The only thing that makes the Brig unique is that it gets, if you're dealing with all deck weapons that have a proc chance, such as the Heaven's Mandate, technically this would be the ship to min-max that on, because you'll have like 1 or 2 extra cannonballs that fire, giving you a higher chance to get an extra 1.5k lightning damage. Is it worth it? No. But that's technically the saving grace of this boat. Moving on to the bark. Sorry, that one got me real emotional there, guys. Moving on to the bark. Again, it's in that support class. Cutter's better in almost every way, guys. I hate to say it. Not that we're comparing them. We're just giving this one a letter ranking. But it's 6 of 6 is pretty bad. So when you're healing another boat, the 6 of 6 is basically when you're healing another boat that's under 33% health, you're going to be 40% more effective with your heals. Sounds good on paper, like, oh yeah, I'm going to rescue them. Well, in reality, there's 3 situations that a player is going to be under 40 or 33% health. 1, they're literally about to flop to like an insane amount of damage. Number 2, they've slowly brought it away to that number, and they're just waiting to hit a repair kit. Or number 3, they're a bloodied build, and they're intentionally playing in that threshold with Black Prince, so that they can keep that 40% damage mitigation, along with a bunch of other multipliers or damage mitigation multipliers that make them take no damage. Now, I play a Sloop with that. There's also a really strong cutter build for PvP that's very similar to that. But that's a dangerous thing, because if you accidentally heal them up out of that threshold, and they start losing their damage mitigations, and they're really banking on that, and they get hit by a mortar or something, right? And they're thinking, oh, I'm sitting at 30% health, this won't one-shot me, but then you heal them just barely out of that or something. Now they're going to get domed by this thing for 40% more damage than they're supposed to be taking. And it's great that you're healing them, but whatever. So I think this 6 of 6, it's not bad, it's just not... It's not a very practical thing. The Cutter's upgraded perk is just much better. And it doesn't have 4 gun ports. This is one of the... It has, I think, 7 on the broadsides if you use all deck, and it's 3 for top deck. So it can't even really be used that well with like torpedoes or bombards or whatever. So all around, like, it's okay. It's playable if you just like it for the aesthetic. It's playable. I'll give it B tier because it's technically like the Cutter, but just medium. I don't know why anybody would want to play it. Honestly, no. I feel like if we'll give the Brig B tier as well. We'll go ahead and bump that up because I feel like if I'm justifying that one to be B tier, they're both B tier. No, that's not true. That's not true. No, get back down there. The Brig's staying at C tier, guys. I'm sorry. The Brig is high C at best. Yeah. Anyways, moving on to the Sambuk, guys. The Sambuk is easy S rank. Easy. I don't have to think about that one. The Sambuk is the absolute peak, the pinnacle of DPS. There's only one contender, shot for shot, which is going to be the Barge, in my opinion. If you haven't seen my top 3 videos, there's top 3 ships and builds for Skull and Bone Season 3. Give that one a look. The Barge is my number 1. It really breaks down why that one is a monster. We'll touch on it a little bit in this video, but back to the Sambuk. The Scorched is an absolute monster of a perk. As you can see here, compared to other boats, Sambuk is actually lacking in defensive. It's kind of a glass cannon, but in terms of just raw damage output, it is. I named mine Cruel Sun. This is a 7 Deadly Sins reference. If anybody's familiar with Escanor, it is the pinnacle of damage, guys. This thing is a monster. When you apply Blaze, you're going to deal 5,000 extra damage to the target, and it's going to splash that damage. Anybody within 150 meters is going to catch on fire as well and take that 5k damage. And then we do 50% increased damage to ships that are on fire. And if that was not enough, that alone is enough to put that in S tier for me, because it is now the hardest hitting ship in the game. It gets an insane amount of reload with fire type weapons. Now, this is not limited to the other ones. This one also affects the auxiliary weapons, so such as the buoys, such as the warhammer or termites or whatever. Crouching tiger, fire mortars, stuff like that. It all is affected by 25% less speed. And if you guys really spec into the reload speed, if you stack the foods and the correct furnishers, you can get on. So like, I like the fire mortars, the fire bombards. I mean, not fire mortars. Fire bombards are, in my opinion, and this is like the Halloween event's out, guys. I've tested the Hellport. I like it in the bow of my Sambuk, but I don't put it on my broadsides. The bombards all around broadsides and the back are just better. They crank, and like I was just saying, you can get 52% increased reload speed on your bombards with this build. So Sambuk is just different. So moving on, Brigantine. This is gonna be, we'll put the Brigantine at like a high A. It might slide into S tier eventually, we'll see. The reason I'm kind of gatekeeping this one is, whereas the Sambuk has this splash damage, when you apply status effects, it splashes to everybody. It does this big 5k damage cleave, and then you get that fat 50% increased damage. It's just more subtle. When the target's flooded, you get 20% more damage, but it's pretty single target. Like, this one uses bombards, this one uses torpedoes. Bombards are better because not only are they aerial, they hit weak spots. They have a high splash damage radius. This one can be problematic. Torpedoes can be problematic because if a friendly target runs between you and your target, then your broadside is just wasted. There's so many issues that can occur. You're limited to range. Like, you got to be mid-range to have your torpedoes arm in time. It's such a weird thing. But at the same time, the Rama's Legacy with the double tuning stations is by far the best build you can put on the Brigantine. It will have your torpedoes hitting between 5 and 10k a hit, which is really big. Big damage, but it's very limited to single targets. So that's why I'm putting this at, it's A tier. It's high A, but it's not. It doesn't bring anything to the table to really support everybody else, and it's not high enough damage in itself. It has no cleave damage. It's just single target damage, really high single target damage. Even with its 6/6, the ram is not compared to the Badar, so in its class, it's whatever. So easy A. Snow as well. I really like the snow, guys. I did kind of break my arm earlier on the battle junk. It's really good, guys. The battle junk is really good. It is by far S tier, but it's not an easy one to craft because you need sturdy eel ropes, and it's really difficult to upgrade. If you're a new player, the snow is like the go-to, guys. I highly recommend you get yourself a snow. I used this for like my first 3 weeks playing the game. I still don't think to this day that I have died with my snow other than PvP in a 1v4. It's a monster. I will quickly touch on that. So when you upgrade it, its whole health gets not that much higher. It's like 55, maybe 60k whole health. But the brace strength, if you run the correct add-ons and the correct food, you can get this brace strength up to about 40k, which is 40 to 45, which is going to be smaller than the Hulk because the Hulk has a larger brace strength because of this 250 right here. But what the Hulk doesn't have, eventually your Hulk brace is going to break, and then you're just kind of SOL. The snow, you recover 5% of your brace strength per second while blocking. That is so dramatically overpowered. It's insane. It makes your biggest enemy not the enemy's DPS. Like, you can ignore one-shot mechanics like the Glorious Phoenix, her broadside that kills 7 people every event. You can laugh at those people and you can be like, what killed you, bro? You good? You need help up? What are you doing? It's so busted how strong this brace is. And the fact that it recovers while blocking, your number one enemy is your stamina management. And if you guys check out my Great Value La Peste build, it's out right now. It's part of my bi-weekly builds. I'll tell you guys how to manage this as far as stamina goes. It's got all the tools for it, all the furniture, all the food you need. Making this a very, very, very strong build. So, anyways, moving on, the Padwa Kong. Oh, I didn't slide the snow into a. Let me do that real quick. This is the snow, right? Yeah. The Padwa Kong, guys. So, I don't even really want to get into details on it. The only thing the Padwa Kong is good at is plunders. It can be used as like a DPS, I guess, but I don't recommend it. 10 out of 10, I would rather have the Sloop, and we'll touch on why. I'm not going to compare these individually. I will touch on these together. The perks are basically the same. The detonate. So this one has a higher chance to proc, but lower hit damage and lower blast radius than this one. This one hits 500 points harder, but less proc chance with a larger blast radius. It also gets 15% increased explosive damage. Now, when this is upgraded, that kind of levels out. This gets weapon radius and damage to structures. This also gets damage to structures, although it's a little bit less. The real kicker here, guys, is they have the same amount of gun ports. If you look at, so you should be using bombards almost exclusively on these because of how they scale with their explosive damage. There's like one torpedo that's viable. I can't remember the name of it, but really you guys should only be using either fire bombards, the Dandalus guns, or the 1,000-year monsoon with either of these. In terms of why you should use the sloop, though, the sloop is classified as a small ship. The Padwa Kong is a medium, as you guys can see right here. And I'm going to show you guys why that is significant. So, this is the Padwa Kong. Check this out. So, on the broadside, we have 3 gun ports, right? And we'll round up. We'll say this does 4,000 damage, right? Let's change the boat. Let's go to our sloop. Where is our sloop? Right here. Pew v pew. Now check this out. 6 point. We'll say 6.6. We'll round this up. 6.6 thousand damage. Now, I'm actually missing some of my furniture right here, so that's not even scaling entirely. That actually goes up even more. It would as well in the other one, but my point is why these are so different. I'll show you guys. Let's go to my perks for this particular boat. And it's got to do with this one right here. It's called Heavy Arsenal. Now, this perk was put in the game to compensate the small ships when they're upgraded to rival the medium-sized boats. The problem is the medium-sized version of the sloop is the Padwa Kong, and they have the same amount of broadside gun ports. So why does the sloop get the perk that makes it hit 50% harder? Because now this just makes the Padwa Kong absolutely useless. It's not useless. The Padwa Kong does stuff in its own right? But like when compared to the sloop, it's not a comparison. You should take the sloop every single time. The only reason you take the other one is because you want to get hit more, because you want a larger hitbox, or like maybe you're a masochist. I don't know. Or I really don't know why you would take the Padwa Kong ever, honestly, but whatever. Back to the ships, guys. Let me go ahead and put these two where they need to be real quick. Padwa Kong, that's a absolute dumpster fire. I'm gonna put it in C, not because it's particularly bad. I mean, you absolutely could do stuff with it. Just you shouldn't. You should take the sloop every time. You're gimping yourself. You're hurting yourself if you don't. Now, if you like the Padwa Kong and you just want to use it for aesthetics, good for you. I applaud you. That's me with this guy right here. I love to use the Brig, even though I hate everything about the Brig. So, sloop, we're gonna put it in A tier. While it does smoke the Padwa Kong in terms of everything, that's about all it does. It's not got the damage output that Sambuk has to push it into S tier. Like, that's why we put Sambuk in S tier, because it is the peak of damage dealers. The sloop is good at everything, but it's not the best damage dealer. It's not the best at really anything particular. So, and it doesn't bring anything to the table. When it's 6 of 6, it will provide a 10% damage debuff on the target. So they'll do 10% less damage. But Ruin is the perk. It's not enough. It's going to push the S tier in my list. So moving on, we have the Barge. Now, if you guys have watched my other video, I have a top 3 builds for Season 3, Skull and Bones. The Barge is my #1 build right now. I hate the way the Barge looks, so I hate that it's so good. But Wildfire is insane. It has the big gun perk that we just talked about, that Heavy Arsenal. It gives the broadsides 50% more damage. It's got 5 gun ports on the broadsides, and it gets 20% passive damage. So shot for shot, guys, we have, with the Barge, the hardest hitting broadside in the game. It's going to outperform every other ship and its broadside, including the Sambuk. That's why it says this thing can go toe-to-toe with the Sambuk on damage. The primary difference in regards to their damage is the Sambuk damage is not limited to weak spots. My Barge build, if the target doesn't have weak spots, We still do high damage, but we won't outperform the Sambuk. If the target does have weak spots, we're going to outperform the Sambuk every time with the Barge. Just because we can thread this build, the needle with that, and absolutely pump weak spots. So, in terms of utility, what does it bring to the table? Well, when you apply Blaze to a ship, it splashes to all other nearby ships. That's cool in itself. We build a Blaze charges super fast, so this pairs really well with the Sambuk. And then when you have your 6 of 6, when you upgrade this Barge all the way, anytime you do damage to a target that's on fire, so we specialize in putting everybody on fire quickly. When you deal damage to people that are on fire, you're going to break their sails. You're going to hit them with the torn sail debuff, and they're not moving, they're not going anywhere. That provides a lot more utility than you think. On paper, it sounds pretty plain Jane. It's pretty cool to combo with the Skurlock's Long Nines, because that is 7k unmitigatable damage whenever you break sails. But in terms of utility, like, think about the convoys, right? Like the fleet events where they're a bunch of merchants trying to take their goods places. Really strong in those events because everything gets its sails broken. It just ends up in a little ball, and with the build that I recommend for this, you just cleave everything down. Everything dies in 2 minutes tops. All your loot's in a nice little pile, and you just get in, get out. Think about like Li Ning Ting, right? Or Li Ting Ning, the level 16 Glorious Phoenix. That girl zooms. That girl has the zoomies. She'll body somebody with her one-shot broadside, and she'll be across the map. This helps deter that. This breaks her sails. This makes her much slower. It takes her from a 15-minute fight, because nobody can hit her. You're trying to art stuff over, make it happen. You're like hitting sails for like a third of the damage. Nobody can hit her in that fight, right? This locks her down into one location. Everybody's just pounding away on her. Makes it go by much quicker. It's much safer for everybody because she's not moving erratically. It makes it really easy to dodge her ram. That just... The amount of times I've seen people get one shot by that ram. The amount of times she's broken my sails. I've tried to solo her. She'll break my sails and then come around and do a U-turn and just done. But yeah, the Barge, super easy. You break her sails, you sit behind her in her like little blind spot, and all she can do is hit you with rockets. In terms of like utility, guys, I can't stress it. The Barge, torn sails, huge. It plays huge things for your positioning. Anyways, we need to move on because I could talk about the Barge for days, and I just repeat the same thing over and over and over again. Easy S tier. Cutter, guys, the Cutter is going to be S tier as well. We got to put a Cutter S tier. There are really strong PvP builds out right now for the Cutter if you guys are interested in PvP. Just going to gloss over that. The Black Prince is going to give you that when you're under 33% health, 40% damage mitigation. You're going to take the Capstone for another 15% damage mitigation. You can run like the Taunt, Hoi Power, whatever they're called, the Taunt bombards if you want in the front and back of your boat. Do something cool with your broadsides to capitalize on the fact that you have 5 of them and they hit 50% harder. If you use all deck weapons, I mean. And then just specialize your furniture into like defense, not taking much damage. And because of all that mitigation you'll have and the constant amount of healing you do, you'll be pretty much immortal. People will have to crank your weak spots. I mean, you don't even have to run. You don't even have to run Black Prince. You could run like Leviathan. There's so many options, guys. The amount of build diversity that the Cutter has, and this passive right here, just the fact that it passively heals you, we'll say 5% of your health every second, and it clears severe damage. It frees your build up for so much stuff that you can do with this. Easy S tier. I don't even have to think about that one much. Moving on to the Hulk, guys. The Hulk is horrendous. I initially thought the Hulk was good because of how large its brace size is, It has the largest brace strength in the game if you upgrade it, 6 of 6. It also has a cool perk system. It'll give you, once it's maxed out, it'll give you a total of 400 additional armor. It's not good. I was thinking like, okay, so when you're a new player, you have like whole armor, or you don't even have whole armor for a while, then you get like a really crappy whole armor that has like 200 armor, right? And the difference between when you have 200 armor versus you having 1,000 armor is really, really big, right? So I was thinking, okay, well, let's double it. Let's make a build where we throw 2,500 armor on this guy, right? Let's get the Hulk up to like, let's run Leviathan, let's run Buccaneer's Oath or something. Let's really get our armor value up. Let's run the War Drums for another 200, etc., etc. All the armor pieces for the furniture, and it's just not, it's not viable, guys. It does mediocre damage. Honestly, the snow does more damage. Your brace will eventually break as well. And unlike the snow where it recovers 5% of that massive brace per second, it takes forever for this brace to recover. It's just nothing about the Hulk is good. We'll go ahead and put that. That's a easy C tier. Might even be D tier. We're gonna put that D tier, guys. That's gonna be our first D tier. Badar, easy S tier. I don't even need to think about this. I will explain my choice here. If you guys watched that video, I shamelessly plugged on the Barge. This is also featured in that. The Badar brings so much group utility to the game, it is insane. So on top of it having the highest hitting ram, it averages about 25k per hit on your ram if you're going top speeds, which is about 22 knots a second or an hour, whatever that speed unit is. 22 is what we'll be hitting on speed, and you'll be hitting about 25k rams. But that's not all, folks. We're back on my Billy Mays stuff. You can't see it here, but it's gonna be in here in the video. You're gonna apply a 300 armor debuff for 30 seconds, which is gonna increase the amount of damage the target takes. You're gonna apply them with flooded, as you can see right here, flooded. And then as you can see right here, you're gonna increase their reload time by 30% for 30 seconds. Now I know that's a lot of 3s and 0s coming at you, but to put that in chicken nuggets, you're increasing the amount of damage they take, you're decreasing the amount of damage they do. If they are a boss, that 30% reload time is actually going to increase time between mechanics by 30% as well. And then you're going to apply flooded, which is massive. Now with the build that I run, I also run munitions mixture as my primary furniture, and I run the Infernal Maul to apply a blaze, and between those two we have a really strong damage over time build, and it's going to really tee up Brigantines and Sambuks, these two, because remember, Brigantines get more damage to flooded targets, while your ram always puts flooded on the target, and then the Sambuk, 50% people that are blazed. This is really just like you're teeing your team up here for success. So I bring this to all the public bossing groups, you know, this, that, and the other. It's massive, guys. It's absolutely huge. If you check out that video that I've shamelessly plugged, I think 3 times now, top 3 builds for Season 3, there's a clip in there of the Badar. You can see these guys, there were 6 people at this Glorious Phoenix event. 6 people. It took them 5 minutes to get 33% of the boss health out of the way. They were complaining in chat there was no DPS, everybody sucked, this, that, and the other. I came in with the Badar. That was the only thing that changed. Within 4 minutes, we did the other 66% of the boss's health. So to put that in chicken nuggets, we did double the damage in the same amount of time, actually a little bit less time, just from the amount of debuffs that the Badar was bringing to the table there. So Badar, easy S tier, easily aesthetically one of my favorite boats in the game. It is by far one of the most fun to use. I really enjoy just ramming people. It's a lot of fun to ram and then turn around and mag dump them with every weapon on the boat. And then in other games, I enjoy damage over time, so having that aspect just checks all my boxes. So, like I said, Barge is probably the best in the game, but this is my personal favorite. Easy S tier. So, moving on to the D-How. The D in D-How stands for freaking D tier, guys. I don't even have to. Easy. If you've played the mini game in this game, to hunt wildlife, it's atrocious. If you haven't, don't do it. It's not worth your time. I don't even. I have like 500 hours in Skull and Bones in season 3. Not total, in season 3. I have yet to find a purpose for the wildlife materials. Unless you're trying to get like the sea people cosmetics, don't use it. Absolutely useless. Anyways, I think that's everything you guys need to know. Skull and Bones. I'll go ahead and with this list, I will put the names here, guys, so anybody who skips to the end can see what everything is. But let's take a really close look here. So S tier, we've got the Battle Junk, we've got the Sambuk, we've got the Barge, Cutter, and Badar. I don't have any regrets about this. All of these are easily S tier. These 5 right here, best ships in the game. Easy. A tier, the Snow is probably my go-to. I would recommend this for any kind of new player seeing this that just skipped to the end. The Snow, guys, it does everything. It doesn't do everything the fastest or the best, but it does everything at a pretty good level. I'd say the same with the Sloop, except for the Sloop doesn't do sea monsters, so if you don't have any interest in sea monsters, which is how I got this sick get-up right here, yeah, Sloop might be for you. Brigantine, super high single target damage. If you're just doing boss events, pretty cool ship for that. Pretty cool ship for getting around. It has the highest top speed in the game at 20 knots while trimming sails. B tier. I hate to see it, but we got the Bark. It's not great. We can go ahead and slide. No, we're not gonna touch this. I like the way this list is made out. Actually, I think it's perfect. C tier, we've got the Brig. For every reason I touched on there, it's not worth using. You can play the game with it. You can really play the game with anything up here except for the D-How. It's just not worth using. Padwa Kong, same thing. The Sloop outperforms it in every possible situation. And then in the D tier, we have the Hulk and the D-How. The Hulk is just a tremendous disappointment. Nothing makes it viable. You could play it, but why would you? And the same with the D-How. The only reason you need that is to do the Sea People quests. It's down bad. But thank you guys for watching, guys. If you're interested in more tier lists, I will be putting out content in regards to, I'll show you guys real quick. So like, I'll be doing, okay, so let's say, here's an easy one, the Sambuk, right? What's good on the Sambuk? We'll talk about this real quick. The Fire Bombard, right? This is an S tier item on the Sambuk because it checks boxes that line up with its passives, right? But if you were to go take the Fire Bombard and you were to put that on, maybe not this one. We'll do the Flying Raging. That's our Brigantine. It's not going to perform very well in the Brigantine, but what will perform very well up here is the Carronade, right? And this is an S rank weapon. This is probably a high A tier for the Brigantine. This is easily an S rank weapon for the Badar. But if you try to put this on a Sambuk, it's gonna be like a maybe a B tier, maybe even a C. Actually, it's probably a C tier. Like, it's just, everything is so niche to what you're using it for. I'm gonna be breaking it down into individual builds. So we'll do a tier list for what armor you should be using, what weapons you should be using, and what furniture you should be using per ship. And then you guys can make your own builds off of that. We'll also be doing, I release constant build videos. Nothing just to get content out there, guys. There will be a finite amount of build videos. Once I feel like I can't make any better builds or any different builds that perform at a high caliber, I will move on to the next game. I'm going to be done with Skull and Bones. But until then, yeah. If you guys need anything, leave a comment. Let me know. I'll try to make it happen. Try to answer any questions. I'm live most every single day from around 10 a.m. Eastern to about 6 p.m. Eastern, I'll say. Drop in Cowboy on Twitch and YouTube. And, yeah, ask me any questions you got. I think it's about everything I need to cover. GG, guys. Thanks you for watching. And go ahead and end this live. But, like, subscribe, follow, do what you need to do.